Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Missed spells. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
When Irish skies are smiling, short is like a morning spring.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. It's St. Patty's Day. I got friends texting me. They were already at the bar drinking. They don't know who they're texting anymore, I guess. That's not my thing. I'm here. And we're going to have a great show today. Today's show is dedicated to the ladies. It's a special episode of the Pep Talk. And we're going to talk about peptides, protocols, dosing, and even a discussion about hormone replacement therapy today. Two returning guests, Dr. Elizabeth Yurth and Dr. Suzanne Turner, and a new guest, Dr. Erika Schwartz. So feel free to post your questions if you are watching live, and we will work them into the discussion as the show progresses. Before we do any of that, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods. Their new red velvet tasty pastry is out of this world. I guarantee if you buy one box, you will wish you bought 5. They will go that fast. This new tasty pastry has a flakier crust than the original tasty pastry that was designed to be more like a Pop-Tart. This tasty pastry really emulates more of a apple turnover kind of pastry, and with 20 grams of high quality protein, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 5 carbs, you will want to eat that all day long. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10 to save 10% off. If you're too cheap to buy them, well, take a chance. You can win them. Every day we give away several boxes of tasty pastries on this show. You just have to listen during the commercial break for the secret word, and then email that secret word to onair@superhumanradio.net, and you are entered to win. And now, without further delay, bring my guests on here. And welcome back, Dr. Yurth and Dr. Turner, and welcome newcomer, Dr. Schwartz. How are you all doing?
Hi.
I don't hear you guys now.
Happy to be here.
Okay, hold on.
Company.
Okay. I just had to put my volume back up.
You hear it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that and the best of company.
I just turned my volume down.
Yeah. I know my voice is grating on people. I don't know how people listen to the show. I got to be honest with you. I don't even like my voice. Never mind other people having to be subjected to it.
It's just your commercials at the beginning are so loud.
Your music.
Are they?
Your music.
Yeah. Okay. So the topic at hand is peptides for women, but we are going to have to talk about HRT as well, because you can't talk about one without the other. I got a lot of questions from women. Weight loss, skin quality, insulin resistance. Are there peptides? One of my concerns about peptides today, and I see this all the time on Facebook, is people will say, what's a great peptide to help me lose 30 pounds? And are we demanding too much of peptides? I'll start with you, Dr. Yurth. What do you think?
So first of all, I'm going to hit on one of Suzanne and Erika and I's pet peeves. And that is the number of women who come to us saying, I just want to be skinny. I just want to lose weight. As opposed to the number of women who come into our practices saying, I want to be ripped and muscular and really fit and really in shape and really healthy. And so it's kind of one of our pet peeves that we discuss a lot, both amongst ourselves, but also when we're doing podcasts. The three of us get together a lot, and it's sort of one of our big pet peeves is the number of women who come into our practices with, I have to lose weight, I have to lose weight, I have to lose weight. And we really are trying to switch that mindset a little bit to, hey, I really want to be fit and muscular. Because, 1 out of every 50 women come into my practice saying, how do I get more fit and muscular? Then come in and say, I want to be skinny and lose 30 pounds. So I'm going to kind of preface with, let's start there. Is it unrealistic to want to lose 30 pounds? No. Is it what your goal should be? No.
And actually, it's only, you never hear a man say after stepping on a scale, I'm never going to eat again. But I bet you every woman has said that at some point in her life. The relationship between gravity and your body has nothing to do with your level of health and conditioning. And really, health and conditioning should be what the focus is. Would you agree with that, Dr. Turner?
Absolutely. It's interesting. When I started, so I used to be a runner and I got injured, and that's the reason why I started weight training. When I was a runner, every time I would look in I'm a woman too. When I would look in the mirror, I would go, ugh, I've got this thing and this other thing that I don't like and this other thing. Now I look in the mirror and I flex. And I go, like, look at that lat. Who has a lat like that? It's fun.
I know.
I love it.
It's amazing. And Dr. Schwartz, how much of the responsibility for this attitude in women in the general public it can be laid at the feet of the mainstream media and people like Gwyneth Paltrow who, tell, don't ever lift more than a 2-pound dumbbell. Isn't the wrong information out there pretty much widespread today?
Beyond. The problem is we have a culture that is still a dinosaurish culture that doesn't realize that youthfulness and health and longevity are really tied into people who have muscles, not people who are skinny, but rather we have the realization that muscles are the most important organ at keeping us young, and how we move and how much muscle mass we have. And I'm not talking about, big, bodybuilder, but rather having the right muscle mass. What it brings us to is youthfulness and prevents chronic illnesses. And there's so much problem out there with the culture. And you're right. I don't even want to say that name because I don't want to give airtime to anybody who helps women be victims and be skinny and be wallflowers and be sick. So I'm totally with you. It's a cultural thing and we need to eliminate it, totally eliminate it if we want women to be active participants and equals in our society.
So women outlive men by 7 years on average. Some women longer, some shorter. But women end up institutionalized because they fall getting out of a chair a couple times and the kids say, oh, Mom, you can't live alone anymore. And we put you in this facility where they'll help you. And women don't realize that they become victims of their lack of muscular strength and durability, because a woman who squats, like, I don't even care if it's body weight squats, but if you're squatting with a bar on your back, getting out of a chair is never going to be a problem for you. You're not going to hit the ground. You're not going to fall, and you're not going to end up in an institution. Is that too broad of a statement? Please.
Betsy has a great comment about the myokines. Talk about the myokines for the bones.
Right. I mean, frailty that's what kills people is frailty, right?
Right.
And that's why hormones and peptides are absolutely critical to that. But, we've only really recently identified muscle as an endocrine organ. So think about it just like your heart or your liver, because it actually has just as much importance in your life as those organs do. So we know that muscles make things called myokines, and myokines have really far-reaching value. So they don't just work at a muscle level. So when you build more muscle and you produce more myokines, your bones get stronger. In fact, you can't build strong bones without muscle. So it's futile. If you have these frail little women and we put them on osteoporotic drugs, what we really need to be doing is building muscle on them, because the muscle actually makes a hormone basically that actually makes bones stronger. You also need myokines for endocrine function, for liver, for gut. So there's very far-reaching benefits to muscles that we didn't even know about years ago. So we have to start thinking about muscle as an organ, not as just, I look buff or whatever. Start thinking about it as an organ. You know,
a lot of people think it's a novelty. Thank you. So let's talk about peptides now, because that's what the crowd is here for. Can you give me a list, and whoever wants to jump in or hand this off, can you give me a list of the top 5 or top 7 or top 3 peptides that fit into the category of these are great for women?
So I'll start and then let these guys chime in. I think all of us, feel like you have to have the growth hormone secretagogues on board. So they're probably the maybe number one, because we know that we want to replace everything we lose as we age. So you've got to replace the hormones. In fact, that's probably paramount. And none of us would probably go to peptides as our first choice with women. We're going to actually optimize their hormones first, even in our young women, right? Even young women tend to be low testosterone, especially if you've been on birth control pills, things like that. So you've got to make sure the hormones are in place. And I'll let Erika talk a little bit about that too. But since that's really, she's written books and books about it. And then you've got to replace the other things you lose, which is growth hormone. So produces what's called IGF, or insulin-like growth factor. So you have to replace that. And so all of us we'll use different things, but CJC and ipamorelin, which are what's called a growth hormone releasing hormone and a growth hormone releasing peptide. So those two together cause your pituitary to release more growth hormone. And you can use those to help sleep. You can use them to help build muscle, but in general, they help everything. So that's going to be sort of our first go-to. And then I think, for me, one of the things I have almost all my patients on is something called thymosin alpha 1. And that's because if you look at the other thing that happens to us as we age, or I won't even say age, because I really don't like to think of everything we do just in the 50-year-old women. This is something that 20 and 30-year-old women should be thinking about too, but we have to restore immune function, because immune health also affects muscles and everything else. So we all use a lot of thymosin alpha 1, which is a thymic peptide that helps to restore immune health. And especially now in COVID world, I think it's a really important piece. So those are the two that kind of come to mind to me. How about you guys? What else?
Betsy, I'm going to always add a repair piece and I might even start with the other one. I think I've talked before on this show with you, Carl, when I've talked about my inflammatory patients that have, other autoimmune diseases. I'm gonna probably start with the immune modulators, and then I'll add the growth hormone secretagogues next. And obviously, everyone is different. It really depends on the patient. But I'm going to probably add something for repair, because if I'm starting out with you and asking you to make changes in your diet, and I'm asking you to begin exercising and be active, then you're almost assuredly going to have some sort of injury. Just it is what it is if you're active. And so and helping your muscles in general to repair from everything we do on a regular basis, but especially if you're doing some resistance training, I want those muscles to be able to go back to go exercise again the next day. So there's a couple that I think of just off the top of my head would probably be BPC and TB4. They can come together. They can come separately. They are also particularly important. There's lots of research with the BPC on intestinal health, and that's such an important part of everyone's recovery from lots of illnesses. Someone I think mentioned a concern about insulin resistance. All of these are things that will help with your intestinal health, and so that's why we would choose to add on a repair peptide like the two of those.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing. And the interesting thing I find is that the limiting factor in our practice is the number of shots that people are willing to give themselves. So as we were saying, I start out with oral. So BPC happens to be oral, and it covers two things, immune boosting and anti-inflammatory. So it's the third peptide I use, CJC, ipamorelin being the first one, second at the same time, thymosin alpha, and then I use TB4 more in recovery, post-surgical, and people who have orthopedic surgery before and after, or plastic surgery, whatever they have surgery. Anyway, the thing is that, as I said, the limiting factor is my patients will say, I don't want any shots. So that's when I have to step back. And I mean, I start out, historically, I've been practicing hormone. I've been doing bioidentical hormones for 26 years and kind of started the movement. And so everybody comes to me for hormones. So the hormones, thank God, are either oral or transdermal. So it's easy to start with them. And then try to give it to them orally and talk them into the fact that they're going to feel better. And like 6 weeks into CJC-IPA, all of a sudden I have a very different audience. So I do exactly the same thing.
And maybe, Erika, you could comment on that. And because I think that we do put all this value in peptides, and if you had a young woman come in, let's say 30, who says, "Oh, I really want to be stronger," or I want more muscle, I want to lose weight, would you start with your peptides, or would you start with things like testosterone
that are prescribing exclusively ipamorelin? Is that even an effective approach? And whoever wants to grab that, please do.
Well, I'm going to argue that I do sometimes do that, Carl. So in general, we do like to use a growth hormone releasing hormone like CJC with a growth hormone releasing peptide. You're going to get maximum efficacy. But there are groups of people where actually it's safer to just use ipamorelin. For instance, we know that that's actually probably a safer approach for like a cancer patient, for instance. Just use ipamorelin. So just using the growth hormone releasing peptide and not using both. So there are times, and I have patients too who don't seem to tolerate the CJC as well. It's a little bit more immune activating. And so lots of times I will actually just use ipamorelin in groups of people. I think if you're healthy and and well, and then CJC and IPA are certainly your best bet. But some of your people it's going to be too much. I agree with what Suzanne said, that lots of times just starting with a thymic peptide first and getting them immune stabilized. But then sometimes I will just go to ipamorelin for a little while until I get their immune system a little bit better, and then add the CJC and ipamorelin. So you're right that the two have a significantly better effect synergistically, but ipamorelin alone has benefits, and in some people it is just better tolerated. How about you guys?
Well, and don't forget about how each of those, the ghrelin agonist as well as the GHRH has its own actions outside of its ability to raise growth hormone. So there's other reasons why we give it. It has actions on the liver, actions on the heart. We believe there's actions on the heart specifically for GHRH that have nothing to do with its raising IGF-1. So that's pretty interesting, I think, that they have their own actions alone. So there are reasons to use both, but I'm going to use ipamorelin, just like Betsy said, that same kind of patient, but I'm also going to use it in my primarily intestine function patients, because this is a really nice, if you're having patients who have some sort of slowed gastric motility, you're going to get a really nice benefit in treating that slowed intestinal motility, in addition to all the things it does by raising growth hormone and by raising the IGF-1.
Yeah, it's a pro-gastric kinetic, I think they call it. It's actually very effective. I talked about it last year, and there was a guy who listens to my show. I can't, Joe, it'll come to me. But anyway, and he emailed me, and his problem was he would eat a meal and literally an hour and a half later vomit it back up. And I said, it shouldn't even be in your stomach anymore. So I had him take 200 micrograms of GHRP6 about 20 minutes before every meal. And he stopped vomiting after the meal. It just moved right through him. So yeah, it's a fantastic gastric prokinetic, and it doesn't have any of the negative effects from the drug-based, which can actually mess up your heart, vagus nerve, and everything else. So you're right. It's fantastic stuff. Fantastic. So I would imagine that skin quality peptides fall into the growth hormone secretagogues as well. Are we missing anything there?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Dr. Schwartz.
maybe melanotan. Maybe adding melanotan would be something that we would be using. I mean, people come in because they want to get tan, but I think the immune function and the, they all go together. Everything affects everything else. So I think that I was going to say about ipamorelin that it started out with sermorelin, right, everybody? It started out with sermorelin, and it was part of the HCG diet, and people were using sermorelin, and then it didn't raise the IGF-1, and it was switched to ipamorelin, and somehow people are still using sermorelin, right? Do you find that they come and have been using it, and they're still using it?
Yeah, I think it was. You're right. It was one of the first peptides, or
Right.
it was sermorelin. It was easy to get. It's still easy to get, and I do think have people coming in on it. I think it has some efficacy, but certainly not as much as ipamorelin.
Right.
I think
Sermorelin seemed to. There was one study that turned me off the sermorelin that showed that in older individuals, it did not effectively raise growth hormone or IGF-1.
right.
There was like the more you were, the less effective it was.
Yeah,
It
it was
is.
right.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Erika's right. I think melanotan's great because it darkens your skin, which is nice. But aside from helping you with weight loss and helping you darken skin, it has the melanocortin system is super, super interesting. And we actually use melanotan a lot more for its immune modulating functions.
Yeah.
I know myself, I have a little bit of an autoimmune disease, and it helps me dramatically with that. So it's a cool peptide because it does make you a little bit tan. I actually have dark skin, so I get like you, Carl, we get pretty dark on it. I have Italian skin. So, so I can actually look freaky dark if I take it too much, but a little bit can go a long way with it. The other peptide that you have to think about for skin is GHK copper. And as a transdermal, so GHK copper has huge systemic benefits. It really is an anti-aging peptide in general. It works on about 500 different genes to positively change genetic expression for longevity. It's hugely beneficial for a lot, but we know it's key for wound healing. We also know that it's really protective for sun exposure. So if you use it as a transdermal, so as a face cream, for instance, you get the added benefits of you can get systemic effects from it because you're raising GHK copper systemically, but it has an anti-wrinkle effect. It has a skin tightening effect. It has an effect to help wrinkles and wounds. So it's a really, like, for acne patients, things like that, or scarring, you can use GHK copper. I use it a lot for wound healing, but I think it's an underutilized peptide, and it's actually, if you look in some of the really expensive face creams, that's what they put is copper peptides in, but it's in tiny amount. So we can get it in a lot higher amounts, a lot higher concentration, a lot more bang for your buck, and just use it. I mean, I have patients buy just GHK copper, bright blue, really strong GHK copper, just add a little bit to their face cream and use that as a face cream, and it's kind of amazing.
And it helps with hair. So those patients that have the hair loss, or if they have the little widow's peak where they're losing hair on either side, just apply some of that right to the front. This is where we tend to lose a little bit, just here in the front. And it can be helpful for helping with hair growth, regrowth, at least thickening of the hair follicle.
When it comes to GHK copper, I know that there was a study done in France years ago that showed by using a derma roller and perforating the scalp and applying the GHK copper, actually made hair, not only dormant follicles wake up and start growing again, but made pigment come back in a lot of these follicles. That study has never been reproduced. It's kind of like the albatross that everybody chases and hopes. But is the problem that we don't give some of these peptides enough time to actually work? Just the way there are people who program jump an exercise routine. They'll do CrossFit for a week. They don't notice anything. They'll do something else for a week. Do people give peptides enough time to work? Do we have magical thinking? Like, I'm going to just take this from the first dose. I'm going to see benefits. Suzanne is
Well,
smiling.
sometimes-
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Sometimes you do see benefits quickly. I have a few things that I think work really quickly. Of course, it all depends on the patient. Everything's very individual dependent. I'll have a good response if I use some of the repair peptides on an injury within a day or two. But sometimes it takes 2 or 3 weeks, and it really sort of depends on how severe the injury is, how long the injury's been present. I think those are significant contributors to how effective it is. But typically, it's going to be at least 4 weeks before, in a healthy person, before you're going to see any benefits. And especially if you're talking about removing facial wrinkles or restoring hair follicle thickness, it's going to take you probably 3 months before you see a benefit.
Yeah, and I think that's
I
the real
do
problem.
think,
Even
Carl.
I tell
do think, Carl,
patients.
Go ahead, Suzanne. Erica.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I make sure that I manage expectations. And when I start a patient, I tell them, like, let's say CJCFL, right? That we're going to start you and don't expect anything for 6 weeks, at least, at a minimum, while we're doing everything else, tweaking everything. And the interesting thing is somehow it works at 6 weeks miraculously. And then in some of them, it works within a week. So I don't know, but I think that if you manage expectations, I did the same thing with hormones. I say, it'll take a few weeks. Everybody's fine in about 10 days, 5 days, and then it's a miracle. So I think that if you manage expectations, you come out with better results.
Yeah, I agree. Even when I first started using growth hormone, the science showed, even in idiopathic short stature, that it takes weeks and sometimes months to show up. The nice thing about all of these is there seems to be a trajectory of their effects that even when you stop using them, the effects seem to carry on for a little longer than just when you cease. Have you seen this, Dr. Turner? I see you're smiling.
Mm-hmm. They do tend to get some benefits. It's a little tough, I think, if you take them off. I've had them on there's a couple of different growth hormone releasing hormones that they have trouble getting off of. And I don't mean that they have problems as a result of it, but they really like how they feel. So they don't want to come off of them. But yes, they get some additional benefit afterward. And it's really about how the cells function. It's really about optimizing the way your cells function so that they're choosing to burn fat as a substrate and making energy in an appropriate way so that they can function and do what they need to do. Intestinal cells, heart muscle cells, liver cells, everything.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We have questions lining up. We're going to get to some of the questions on the other side of the break. Also, we're going to start talking more about hormone replacement therapy, as in sex hormones and stuff like that, because I want to put a question to the panel. I've had a doctor say to me that he refuses to put his female patients on HRT past 60. Like there's some magical thing that happens in the body at 60. And he said, well, the increase in risk of cancer. And the research doesn't show that. And so I figured I'd ask 3 women who help women, what your opinions are about HRT past 60. We're going to take one quick commercial break. Stay tuned. You are watching and listening to Superhuman Radio. Getting a massage post-workout is a proven strategy to facilitate better recovery. Getting to massage therapists can be difficult and expensive, especially in these times. The solution is the Meteor, a heated massage ball from Milestorm. Reduce pain and soreness and expedite recovery with the Meteor's research-backed vibration settings and therapeutic heat. It's convenient for travel and works on any body part. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Meteor and use code SHR15 for 15% off and free shipping if you buy 2 or more. Start recovering better today. Leprechaun. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon 1 banner ad today. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
I see questions lining up. We're going to get to all of them. I have a little quick announcement to make. One of our sponsors, Pure Nootropics, is having a flash sale for the next 5 days, ending Sunday. I'm telling them to end it Monday because it takes a little while for the podcast to circulate. They are offering a really special deal on uridine. In small animal studies and human studies, the combination of uridine and omega-3 supplements improved mood. In fact, it's the basis for a well-known biohacker supplement called Mr. Happy Stack, which has a lot of anecdotal support. You can try uridine. By the way, uridine is included in baby formula, implying that there's some sort of very important nutritional value. It's metabolized in the CDP choline, which is useful for supporting synapse formation in the brain. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/pure and use the code SHR30, you'll save 30% off your order of uridine and anything else on the website. We have a lot of stuff that you'll see, but on uridine for the next 5 days, check it out. Excuse me, I'm wheezing because I have been, I'm a bad boy. I've been vaping CBD products lately. Anyway, welcome back, the panel. Everybody, it's always funny. I have such a esteemed guest on my show. But my audience knows me. They know I don't hold anything back. And sometimes I think maybe I shouldn't say that because my guests, this is no way them endorsing, but I have been vaping. I sleep better. What can I say? I need to move to a state where that stuff isn't frowned upon.
Why don't you just take drops?
I did take drugs. I took a lot of drugs in high school. I did a lot of LSD.
No, I meant drops, not drugs.
Oh,
vaping your
drops. So you take a dropper full, and then you don't have to get into your lungs, and it actually works pretty well.
I have edibles. I actually have the new Delta 8 form of CBD, which actually gives you a euphoric feeling. It's kind of cannabis.
Nice. I don't have that.
Yeah, it's really good stuff, but I'm experimenting with it. Anyway, let's get back at the topics at hand. But first of all, let's look at some of these questions. So here's one from, I have to put her question up first because it's Elisa. She said she put down here, this is Elisa asking, because she's asking from our network page. Can you give a protocol for GHK copper topically? Anybody want to jump on that?
So, so you can get it from a lot of different sources, GHK copper, and honestly, it's really as a topical, for face cream, really stronger is probably better. So you can either just buy the straight GHK copper, as sort of a little serum, and add it like 2 or 3 drops of a strong formulation. The only thing is some people you have to work up to because it'll irritate the skin a little bit initially. And I just apply it every single night at bedtime as sort of my nighttime face cream. So honestly, it's really kind of at a tolerance level. There's companies that make, just GHK copper face cream that you can buy the actual face cream, but it's really cost effective to really buy just strong GHK copper serum. And add a few drops of it. It's a bright blue, and you just add like 2 or 3 drops of it to whatever your face cream is that you use at night, whatever your customary stuff is, and put it on. But you can also buy, there's, a lot of the formularies that we work with, or the compounders that we work with, make face creams that are mixed with like argireline, which acts like a Botox. So we can get formulations that have like GHK copper and argireline together with them. But argireline is like a topical Botox. It actually sort of stops the muscles from being able to contract. So it actually acts on the acetylcholine receptor, similar to Botox. So we can actually get those compounded as well for you guys. And that is sort of nice as well. I don't know. What do you guys use?
Yeah, I use it twice a day under whatever else I'm doing. So clean, dry face, apply twice a day. My patient, actually, when I got them some of the medication from the compounding pharmacy, went and made a whole product line that's all GHK-Cu. It's an eye serum and a face serum and a moisturizer, and it's called Restoracell. They're great people, and they're really looking for high quality stuff. So it's just nice to have somebody I know making it. But they were so excited about the outcome or the results of using it that they created this whole product line.
I know it's going to happen. I have some Flow Gel Ultra at home, and Elisa's going to have me make some for her.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question actually for Dr. Schwartz. Neam McAvoy says, when talking about HRT, can someone explain the difference between bioidentical and not, and which is best, please?
Bioidenticals are also known as natural hormones. They refer to estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone. And they are the hormones that look molecularly identical to the hormones our bodies make when we make them when we're young. And those are basically duplicated. They're made in a lab to look exactly like the hormones we make. And they work very nicely because they fit in the receptors in the cells that would ordinarily accept estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone, which our bodies would make until they don't make it. And it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 60 or 70, you will maintain those receptors if you keep on giving them the right amount of hormones, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, in the right doses and in the right formulations. The non-human identical hormones are the ones that molecularly don't look like your hormones. All hormones that we take are synthetic because we're not making them. They're being made in a lab. But they're either made in a lab to look like your body's hormones, which are bioidentical or natural, or they're non-human identical, which we say are synthetic, but they're already synthetic. So Provera, Premarin, birth control pills, those are non-human identical hormones, and they will give you the side effects of something that, fitting a round peg in a square hole, basically. Almost, but not quite. They're not as bad as you think they are. When we talk about birth control pills, they suppress your own hormone production. So what they do is they put you in a menopausal stage. If you check people's blood tests, hormone levels when they're on birth control pills, they have the hormone levels of menopausal women. And they have other side effects that are undesirable, but are not as bad as we think they were originally, because they don't increase the risk of cancer, except for Provera, which is the only one really. And birth control pills increase the risk of infertility, really. But what happens is that these hormones, bioidenticals, are clearly better because your body recognizes them as their own and they act as normal hormones.
Well, let's speak openly. Premarin, Prempro, these are actually isolated from horse urine, equine
Premarin.
estrogen, and Premarin, Prempro is another one, but also, these are horse forms of hormones.
Right, so they
Why?
don't look the same as your hormones. They don't look the same as your own hormones. They have hundreds of hormones in them, but only one or two that look like our own hormones. So it's like fitting a round peg in a square hole. So you're better off with bioidentical hormones, obviously. And they work really miraculously when you're doing it in the right combination, the right dosing, the right, pulse, like your body releases them in pulses. So you want to keep them in pulses. You don't want to just take something that lasts forever or releases them at the wrong time. But bioidenticals are clearly the only ones to use, really.
So some
They
doctors say,
use them for birth control.
Some doctors like to say, as I was going into the break, I implied that a woman shouldn't take anything after 60. Where does that come from? Why? And is that true?
That comes from the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the North American Menopause Society. And it is one of the consequences of the Women's Health Initiative study that looked at Premarin and Prempro and got into trouble in 2002. And it's still, a lot of the conventional medical establishment is still very scared of hormones because supposedly they increase the risk of cancer, heart attacks, and strokes, although in 2017, the data was retracted, the whole study was retracted, but they didn't get any media play. So the thing is that, unfortunately, people are afraid of them, and the OBGYNs were taught in the wake of that failed study that you had to stop after 3 years, 5 years, and now by 60. But as you said, Carl, which is so true, nothing changes at 60. So if you're going to stop giving women hormones at the age of 60, you're just going to send them into involution. Like they're going to go to senescence. They're going to get old. They're going to get frail. Their minds are not going to work anymore. And that's really a terrible thing. So you want to continue, stay with your hormones for as long as you're alive, basically. I mean,
women and men develop insulin resistance as they get older. Lots of theories on why that is. It would be akin to a doctor saying to a type 2 diabetic patient, you can be on metformin, but after 60, we have to stop taking it because you have to gracefully get used to insulin resistance. They don't say that to people. So why would they say, oh, we have to stop your hormones after 60? I feel great. I don't want to stop. I mean, it's illogical. And let's all be clear about something. Methylated corticosteroids cause all those same potential problems with thrombosis and cancers because when you methylate a drug, you cause the liver, the hepatic landscape changes to prothrombotic, pro-cancer, all of these horrible things. So it's not the estrogen or the progesterone, it's the delivery system that the pharmaceutical industry chooses to use so they can use less of these hormones and keep them in your system longer. So
yeah, I'm going to comment on your whole thing about, because this is really one of my pet peeves, is this whole, as we get older, it's okay. And it was funny, I was just talking to my son, was writing an article for me and about albumin, and it was interesting because he was telling me all these great things that albumin does, right? How important it is. And there's norms that like people say, okay, well, when you're young, albumin should be above 5, but when you're old, it's okay for it to be 4. Well, why? Why when you're young it's 5, but then it's normal, to be 4 when you're older? That makes no sense, right? And it's why it's unfortunately it's this ageism of society that we get to a certain age and we look at labs even differently. Doctors look at labs and they go, well, that's fine for your age. Or they look at how you're doing weight-wise or muscle-wise and they go, that's great for your age. And I hate that comment. In fact, I just had a patient the other day say to me, never say to me, you look great for your age. And I would say the same thing. Never say to me, look, you look great for your age.
Yeah.
I want to hear you look great. And I think that's where, when we look at our patients with hormones, with peptides, people sometimes get to a state where they're like, oh, well, I'm kind of too old for that stuff. Right. Or, and that's such a, oh my gosh, that just kills me, because we do that as in medicine with everything. It's okay that your arthritic joints getting worse. It's okay that your brain's getting worse. That's just normal aging. It's not. I mean, we should not normally age. Age is a disease,
It's a cultural disease, actually. That's the problem. That's culturally that's expected.
Yeah.
Can't hear him.
I can't hear you, Carl.
Can't hear you, Carl.
Can't hear you.
How about now?
Yeah.
No, we can.
No.
Now you're frozen.
Okay.
Frozen, but we can hear.
So, and maybe internet. So it's why I stopped liking Dr. Andrew Weil, because he professes to people, learn to grow old gracefully. I'm like, F you.
Yeah.
I don't want to grow old gracefully.
Right.
I don't want to
He
be a big
wants
fat.
to. He wants to.
Yeah, because he's lazy. The truth is
Because
he's
he's
lazy.
lazy. He doesn't care.
Yes.
Look, he doesn't care. So that's why it's a matter. It's all a cultural thing. It's a sad state of affairs, because you don't have to get sick. You don't have to be old. You don't have to be incapacitated. You don't have to do any of these things. You could be just fine until the day you just check out.
Yes. So we have a question from a man here. He says, Kisspeptin versus HCG in men, they do very different things, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they do. So, in general, if we're trying to preserve testicular function, like if we put somebody onto, and I'm not sure if he's speaking from a younger male where we're just trying to increase spermatogenesis or increase testosterone based on trying, using HCG or Kisspeptin to try and increase people's own production of sex hormones. And they both will do that. In terms of kind of, in my experience, more potency, HCG is really our body's, probably more like the way our body does it. I prefer it usually in my men, also on testosterone when I'm trying to preserve testicular function. I do prefer HCG. It's getting harder for us to get HCG. So that's where we turn to things like Kisspeptin, because it's becoming sometimes more readily available to us. But my experience is I can get much better testosterone production in younger males who I want to increase testosterone naturally by giving HCG. And in my males who I put on testosterone to preserve testicular function, I do better with HCG. My limitation is in being able to get it anymore. How about you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Same. Yeah.
And I think you have to use such a high dose of Kisspeptin that it becomes cost inefficient.
Yeah, prohibitive. It becomes very expensive.
Yeah.
So here's a couple questions. Hold on a second. Yes. Oh, no. Oh, okay. So is this the same for cypionate coming from horses? No.
No, cypionate, they're all made in a lab. So they have to be attached to certain molecules to make it easy for us to absorb them, to get them into our system. So cypionate, propionate, and enanthate, those are the way testosterone gets carried into your system.
Right, and what those additions to the molecule do is they slow down the release once it's in tissue, that you have a 28-day. But it's not. The other thing is it's not uniform. Like with cypionate and enanthate, the first 4 to 5 days you get 50% of the dose, and the next 25 days you get the balance. And this is why it's so important to dose twice a week so that you have a stable. But what people have to understand is once that cypionate or enanthate molecule is cleaved, what the body sees is bioidentical testosterone, because now it's just the molecule by itself. So it's a little different. It gets a little tricky. You got to be careful.
Right. And the question, the question asks about what you were talking about earlier, methyl testosterone, Carl.
Maybe, yeah, the methylation. Yeah, no, methyl testosterone is not good. Neither is methyltrenbolone. These are very dangerous for the liver. They can damage your liver permanently, cause terrible, terrible side effects. That's why I'm not a fan of orals at all. I'm a huge fan of injectables, but not of orals. Neam McAvoy says, thanks for the info. I have endometriosis. I had surgery, etc., but don't want a hysterectomy. Can peptides and hormone replacement help me?
Possibly.
That's interesting. Yeah. One of the things we've been doing with this, this is a cellular stress problem. And so one of the things that I've been using, it's really the way the cell is unable to go through taking the trash out. We call it autophagy. And so one of the things we do for this is putting people on low doses of rapamycin or sirolimus. And there are some studies on using that for helping those patients. But generally, anything you can do to improve cellular stress is going to help endometriosis. Sometimes patients respond to progesterone alone. And you can do that orally if your intestines are working well, or topically if they are not. But sometimes it's it really depends on where your estrogen is, where your level is. If you're checking blood, if you're looking at that, I have patients that I just saw yesterday. Her estrogen is 433. So there's very little I'm going to do that's going to bring that estrogen down. And so that patient, I can certainly, there's lots of things I can do. There's some herbals and some other things out like a DIM and CDG and I3C. All those things are going to help, but I doubt I'm going to be able to get her down low enough on her own. And so sometimes we look to other things. So she was a patient that I used that in.
Did you also have an opinion on this, Dr. Erika?
Yeah, I actually agree with Dr. Turner, with Suzanne, that I have the same thing, and we do work. Actually, we do intravaginal progesterone, and sometimes it works pretty well. But I think I work a lot with DIM, and I think that it is a cellular stress issue, and I don't think you need a hysterectomy unless the uterus, there really no reason to do a hysterectomy unless the uterus is so big and your pain is so untenable. But I think that there are a lot of things you could do around it, including thyroid, adrenal support. And those are things that will help temper down. It's so funny because I had a patient yesterday with an estradiol of 500 and something. She has no symptoms whatsoever. And actually she was seeing some other doctor who was giving her estrogen and said, you can use some more estrogen. I said, no, you actually don't need any estrogen. It's like, let's let the estrogen go. So I actually had turned to her I put her on CJC and IPA and as a first line of defense. And then, the next thing with her would be BPC as far as I would do, right? And she'll do well. The other thing is Mother Nature has a way of getting those levels down anyway. You wait a little bit, they'll come down because she's perimenopausal, and that's what's going to happen when she goes into menopause.
Exactly right.
They'll take a nosedive, so you can wait and she'll be okay.
Well, and the liver plays a role in flushing out excess hormones to a certain degree. I know that there was a study I read a long time ago that looked at the same dose of testosterone cypionate being given to young men and old men. And the overall increase in plasma testosterone levels was greater in the old men. And then they did some other study that showed that receptors that flush testosterone out of the body were reduced in older men. This conservation approach makes sense as men get older and they produce less testosterone. The body tries to conserve more. So it really makes perfect sense. Doesn't the liver have a role in helping to get the excess estrogen out of the body? And is there a way to stimulate and improve that role?
Glutathione. That's, we give people IVs with glutathione. And pretty high doses of glutathione, and that helps. But, we don't really take the estrogen out unless there's a symptom, there's a problem, because the truth is we don't know that long-term, they're not going to have it anyway, it'll drop. But also, we don't know that long-term estrogen will actually hurt you. Women have very high estrogen levels, estriol, when they're pregnant, and they don't get cancer and they don't get sick. So I think that we have to kind of disabuse ourselves of the idea that high levels of estrogen are dangerous.
In men,
I'll
Madam
add to
Chair.
that, though, that it is a balance, right? So if you have these very high levels of estrogen, sometimes you have to balance that progesterone up a little bit, right? Because it is that balance between progesterone and estrogen that can contribute to some of the side effects of the high estrogen. So sometimes, instead of trying to lower the estrogen, you might give them a little bit more progesterone to balance that out, because it's really that ratio of progesterone and estrogen that seems to have an effect. I'm also going to comment on the endometriosis. One of the things that has been shown to be beneficial is a vaginal epigallocatechin, what's called EGCG, which is what's in green tea. And the epicatechins have a lot of incredible benefits, but they have a really significant anti-inflammatory effect. And they really are helpful. Like if any of your women who have cervical dysplasia, endometriosis, using vaginal epigallocatechins is super beneficial for those patients as well.
That makes sense.
I have to just answer somebody's question here. Is it Kurt Mitchell? Yeah, he says, please tell me this recording will be available. Would love for my wife. Yes, you can just come right back here and have her. It'll be on Facebook and YouTube. Plus, if you go to superhumanradio.net, you'll find it there as well. Okay. I'm looking to see what we have missed of the questions. It looks like we've got pretty much all the important ones answered. Let's talk a little bit about peptides and sex hormones together. Will women use some of the secretagogues we spoke about, the growth hormone secretagogues, and even some of the BPC and stuff? Will they still be as effective in a woman who isn't optimized hormonally?
Sorry.
My opinion on that is that hormones play a huge role. And I do think hormonal optimization is probably paramount to that's kind of our priority, is getting people hormonally stabilized before we start throwing peptides into the mix. Peptides are expensive. A lot of them, as we talked about, are injectable. So I think you can get a lot more bang for your buck by getting people hormonally stabilized first. But there are a lot of people who still were trying to attack one very specific problem. For instance, Suzanne talked about, and Erika both talked about, muscular recovery or surgical recovery, and using things like BPC and thymosin beta-4 with injury recovery or surgical recovery. Those are great to just throw into the mix. And so sometimes you'll want to very specifically, GHK copper, for instance, for skin or wound healing. So there are lots of times that we're trying to really target one very specific problem. Like you start out initially with kind of weight. Well, if you're trying to use peptides for weight loss versus trying to get hormones stabilized, I think you're going to fight a little bit of a losing battle. I think you're going to want to get the hormones stabilized first and then start adding peptides into the mix. So do I think there's a place for peptides alone? Yes. But in general, I'm going to encourage most women to have their hormones checked and get optimized and then add peptides into the next layer.
So you know how I piss people off for a hobby, right? Someone once posted on Facebook, what peptide will help me lose 30 pounds? And I posted back, there are no peptides that will mitigate a bad lifestyle and lack of discipline when it comes to eating. Like, they don't have that peptide yet. You're not going to take a shot and go, oh, now I can stick to my diet because I have discipline. No, peptide. And I did a blog post that I was really worried when peptides really became popular a couple years ago, and compounding pharmacies were offering them and doctors were prescribing them, that they would be seen as a failure because people thought these peptides, these new things, it's gonna cure me. It's gonna make me lose weight. It's gonna make me young again. I just have to inject this stuff. And I'm like, you're gonna be very disappointed because it will help you if you're on the right track. But if you're on the wrong track, testosterone, estradiol, peptides, growth hormone, secretagogues, frank growth hormone, not going to save you from a bad lifestyle.
What I will say, Carl, about that is probably my fifth peptide to add to patients is any of the GLP-1 agonists. And so as much as I will do all the other things you've talked about, we've all talked about today, the GLP-1 agonists do have some great benefits as far as weight loss go. They work in a similar manner as far as upregulating the way that your cells choose to burn fat as a preference. And they work on the brain, they work on the heart, they work on the kidneys and the liver. So there's tons of benefits for using them. In addition, they are very anti-aging. And I think someone asked about insulin resistance. These are currently FDA approved for diabetes and for weight loss. I have had several patients who have not lost weight using them, but I think that's probably more like 10%. Most of the time people lose a good bit of weight. And if you're talking about someone, I have a diet I want to do, but I can't stick to it, this is really it really does help you to stick to that diet. If you've gotten a little bit too tied to sugar, for example, it can be really helpful. If you're trying to get off of wheat for an autoimmune disease or something like that, it can help you stick to that diet, give you the gumption to do that. There are some side effects that you have to be aware of, and nausea is probably the biggest one. I have patients who have anything from severe fatigue, much like the keto flu that patients get when they take them, and that can last about 2 weeks. It does usually wear off, but some people it doesn't wear off and they can't tolerate the nausea, and so we just call my anti-aging preferred peptides.
So is it a glucose disposal agent, or is it an insulin mimetic, or does it sensitize the insulin receptor? How does it work?
So it works in several ways. One is the upregulation of PGC1 alpha. That's kind of the place where it starts. Clinically, it works by slowing down gastric motility, so your appetites decrease. It works on improving insulin sensitivity in the brain, so that helps with you not feeling so hungry all the time.
That's a big one.
It's very big. It's very big. And it's the original research using the GLP-1s was done in patients with dementia. The problem was those patients lost too much weight. So I have used it even in my ALS patients. It has a place in those patients, but the problem is you have to start from a good point because they're going to lose weight. And unfortunately, usually see people lose weight that don't necessarily want to.
Yeah, the GLP-1 agonists are pretty amazing because honestly, we've talked in our mastermind groups that they may be the one cure-all for almost every disease. They're hugely beneficial in dementia. They're hugely beneficial for metabolic syndrome, for insulin resistance. They help with weight loss. They are anti-inflammatory, so they help with autoimmune disease. They help with gut. So honestly, they are, the GLP-1 agonists are hugely beneficial for almost every disease. And we could say they might be the number one peptide you should go to for everything. As Suzanne said, I lost a lot of weight on GLP-1 agonists because I was constantly so incredibly nauseous. I didn't want to touch food. So the nausea is sometimes difficult to get around. Usually it goes away, but sometimes you just keep fighting it with people. But they are hugely beneficial and I think underutilized, and they are really, so we use those a lot for helping people lose weight. I also want to make a comment about, your comment about exercise, because we talked about this in a podcast the three of us did, where if I take a woman who has zero testosterone and I'm asking her to go to the gym and exercise and get out of bed in the morning and do everything.
You're going to burn her out.
Right.
Yeah.
She can't do it. And so to just say it's all diet and exercise when I think sometimes you have to look at hormones first, because you've got to get motivation up and mood up. And because if I'm horribly depressed because I have no progesterone and I have zero ability to have sex or build muscle because I have no testosterone, nothing else is going to work. So I do think that you've got to look at hormones maybe first and then say, okay, now we've got your hormones stabilized. Let's get you to the gym. Let's get you eating right. And then,
in fact, I would argue that there's research out there that shows women respond to exercise very differently than men because you're much more complex. You can actually make a human being. I can't. And so as a result of that, there's lots of evolutionary triggers that cause women to not be able to lose body fat. And one of them is in postmenopausal women, especially those that aren't treated. The more they exercise, the lower their metabolism shuts down to compensate for the stress. The body goes, oh my God, this idiot's going to kill us. We got to stop her. And so you see women that pour on the exercise more and more, and body fat stores actually increase. And you'll have idiots out there who say, well, that's impossible. If you're just eating too much. No, when it comes to women, the complexity of their bodies is so astonishing from an evolutionary perspective that it's always designed to protect her from getting into a situation of famine where, oh my God, if she gets pregnant now, she can't take care of a baby. We have to stop her from doing this. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the Victoza and the GLP-1s is, do you think they would benefit someone who's already metabolically flexible? I mean, I can fast for 24 hours and train and all that sort of stuff. Am I going to see any benefits from these GLP-1 agonists?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah. I want to address 1 second about what Betsy just said, which is about hormones. The first thing you're losing are the hormones. And unless you put the hormones back in, you're not going to get the results from the peptides or from anything else that you will get when you put the hormones back in. So I think it's crucial to really understand the importance of hormones, and really start with hormones, whether it is adrenal, thyroid. I mean, there's no way you're going to get to the results you want if you don't put the hormones back in, because that's how Mother Nature takes you out, by taking the hormones out. So you want the hormones back in. And then the peptides work wonderfully. I mean, I think that I can't find anybody. I give people Ozempic and Victoza, and they're not going to take it. They're not going to do well with it if I don't have their hormones balanced. And the diet they're going to be unable to eat. Like Betsy said, they're not going to eat because they're nauseous. They're not going to lose weight. They're not going to lose fat because they have white fat. They don't have brown fat. And there's so much that needs to be, metabolically behind the scenes in order to be able to get the results that you see. That has to occur. And hormones are the only way to help you get there.
And that's men and women, Carl, because we get a lot of men who come into our peptide program asking for all these peptides. And my peptide specialist always tells them, you know what, if you've got zero testosterone, if you're a guy and your testosterone, so your testosterone's low, which almost every guy over the age of 30 anymore we see with low testosterone, and they're coming in they're wanting all these muscle building peptides. He always says, listen, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck by getting your testosterone on board first, and then we can start adding the peptides in. So I think we get so fascinated with peptides, and peptides are amazing, right? There's so many cool things you can do with them, but it still comes down to you've got to get the body back stable in a hormonal state stably first.
In fact, testosterone in men is such a problem today. I just did a show a few weeks ago with a scientist, I think from Germany. And they're looking at young boys entering puberty with very low testosterone levels. It actually alters them when they get older, when their testosterone levels start to drop again as they start to go through andropause. And it's not good. We're seeing more and more young boys, phthalates, androgen receptor blocking, xenoandrogens, xenoestrogens, we won't be able, people are worried about the population. If things keep going the way they're going, we're not going to have anybody have 100.
We have several.
We won't be able to father a baby. So that, boom, we're done. Okay.
We have several young men and I'm talking 18, 19 years old, who have super low testosterone at that, even they're, and they're, these are not people who are trying to, or who are too young. I mean, they've got bone age on their side, but their levels are really low, and they're not able to keep up in the gym like they want to.
They probably are smoking too much dope.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably true. That was my problem when I was young. All right, let's take our last commercial break and we'll wrap up the interview. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The
power of light can be truly life-changing and an important element for every superhuman. Because of this, I want you to experience the power of award-winning Celluma light therapy. Celluma utilizes NASA research technology to improve health at the cellular level and is cleared by the FDA to effectively treat a variety of pain, muscle and joint conditions, as well as facial wrinkles and acne. Our entire team here at Superhuman Radio uses it. Its innovative shape-taking design allows for easy placement anywhere on the body. Choose from 13 different models. For an exclusive listener discount, go to shrnetwork.biz/Celluma. That's CELLUMA. And use code SHR10 to save 10% off of one of these award-winning devices. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/livebetter. Use code SHR and save 20% off today. Folks, I'm pleased to announce that Pure Nootropics is now carrying the antioxidant alpha-lipoic acid in its bioidentical natural form as R-Ala. R-Ala provides protection in many areas and has even been shown to promote weight loss. Check out the interview I did on episode 2608 back in October to learn more. Our friends at Pure Nootropics have been bringing you great products and deals since 2013, and they have another one with R-Ala. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure and use code SHR30 for a whopping 30% off. Level up. Go Pure. As a listener of this show, you know how important your gut is to your overall health. Bioptimizers has a potent product to heal and repair your gut unlike anything else. It's called Leaky Gut Guardian. It's powered by patented IGY Max, an egg-based protein that enhances gut health, reverses antibiotic damage, and strengthens your immune system. Available in 2 delicious powders, vegetarian vanilla and chocolate carnivore. Simply mix it with your favorite beverage. Repair your gut and power up your immune system risk-free and save 10% off. Go to shrnetwork.biz/leaky gut. Don't delay. Fix your gut today. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Leprechaun. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the weight of the world.
Welcome back. I was supposed to put that up during the show, but it's hard for me to, when we have 4 guests, not to cut somebody's face off. If you notice, I shifted Dr. Turner and Dr. Schwartz, because every time I would put something up, it would go right across Dr. Schwartz's face. So I felt,
Okay.
I'm always, I'm a Gemini. I'm always trying to balance things. You know what I mean? The twin pulls one way, the other twin pulls the other way. So that's why things look different to everybody out there right now. And that's what I've been used.
I always feel like we're on the Brady Bunch when we're doing these.
Yeah.
Like looking
I know.
at each other.
We're definitely a much cooler Brady Bunch. That's for sure.
You're right.
So, what do we miss here when we're talking about peptides for women? Is there anything that we overlook here? Does anybody want to just jump in? We'll go around the whole panel and see what you think.
Let's see. I think, I think the main ones we talked about, the thymic peptides, the BP, and using BPC for repair, the growth hormone secretagogues. I think the only place I might kind of add in is and this is not in the peptide realm, but one of the things that gets used a lot in your talk, Carl, for men that we don't think about for women as much. But if if you have women who are more into kind of some of the muscle building, you can also think about things like the SARMs, the selective androgen receptive modulators, like LGD, which are kind of interesting to cycle some of your women through who do want to build muscle. I think they get largely thought of in the male population and not in the female population. And they're kind of nice to use sometimes for women. They have less androgenic side effects. So if you have some women who get a lot of androgenic side effects from testosterone, like hair loss, acne, right? You can sometimes use the selective androgen receptive modulator, the SARMs, in women as well. So it's kind of something I think gets forgotten in women that can be very nice for them to use as well.
It's almost like SARMs were made for women when you think about it, right? No androgenicity, all the benefits of these sex hormones. But I'm not convinced about SARMs or SERMs because the mosaic of the receptor through evolution has become what it has become for a reason. And then selectively activating this area and that area may prove not to be a good idea in the long run. We just don't have all the long trials. But I've actually been considering taking SARMs along with my HRT just to see what happens because, I like to experiment, me. Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Schwartz, what do you think about SARMs for women?
I think that the jury's out on it. I think that it is in the world of the bodybuilders and a lot of people are using them. I think that we don't really know the long-term effects on the body. So I think, I don't know how it's going to affect cardiovascularly. I don't know. I mean, I use it in some of, very little in women. We just don't do it in women. I don't have them. I think Betsy would be more into this. And Suzanne.
And Dr. Turner, both Dr. Turner and Dr. Yurth train very, very hard as women. And
that's right.
What do you think? You think, Suzanne, you think there's any benefits to SARMs for women?
So I have a couple of heavy bodybuilders. I've got a gal who does competitive bodybuilding figure competitions, and she does use that because she loses her hair, and she has gorgeous hair. And so if she takes straight testosterone, she loses her hair. So we have done that in cycles, of course, not ever using anything continuously, but that's one of the things we've cycled for her is the LGD. There's lots of other things we use in her. Your question earlier was, are there any other peptides we need to talk about? And I think one we can't forget about is oxytocin. I think that's really one of the ones I use a lot for women. Mm-hmm. There's so much, and again, this is post all the other things that we would like to do, but there's so much benefit as far as social anxiety. And especially as we're coming out of this season of really being isolated, I think we're going to start to see a lot of people with anxiety and with almost an agoraphobia of going out into society. So I think it's one of the things we can use. We actually have a jar of the troches in my office that we use for stressful days. We combine it with some L-theanine in the troche, and we call them world peace troches because they really do help with that social anxiety, with just this sort of overwhelm feeling that a lot of people get. There have been several rat studies using the oxytocin as far as weight loss goes. And I think there was one human study that showed a 12-unit 4 times a day to be beneficial for weight loss. I haven't seen that be the case when I've tried it for patients, but it does have a little bit of appetite suppression. So some people are able to, so I'll have them use it if I'm having them do intermittent fasting. I'll have them use it in the morning to help them with their butyrate, to help them get through that for several weeks when it's difficult to make the transition to intermittent fasting.
Oxytocin increases L-reuteri in the gut. L-reuteri is a microbe that is associated with a healthy aging phenotype in rodents, and we assume that it will cross over to humans as well. I love oxytocin. I've been using oxytocin for 8 years now, but now I use pretty high doses, 150 units post-workout in my peptide stack that I use, and 150 units before bed. And I don't get the pounding heart anymore, but I do get the sensation, the head rush. But oxytocin crushes cortisol. Post-workout, I feel like I can go back and train the same muscles like later that day when I use high doses of oxytocin.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Suzanne, because it has actually been kind of one of my favorite peptide hormones to use in my patients, because it has so many positive benefits, right? It does. I do think it helps with weight loss. I think sometimes you have to dose it a little high, but I do think it helps with weight loss. I think it helps with muscle building. I think it helps with mood. I think it's immune modulating. It is an amazing, which is why you make so much of it in breast milk, right? And it has such huge benefits. So I use a ton of oxytocin. I think it's a peptide hormone we've sort of reawakened to. Wow, you can do a lot with this, and it's very safe. It has great anabolic potential without having any of the bad anabolic side effects. So, it's the only thing I use for anabolism right now is just oxytocin, and I can get a good effect from it.
There's good research that oxytocin is. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Erika.
I use it a lot too, and I find that it's really great results with it as well. Yeah.
So there's good evidence that oxytocin should be used therapeutically in people with congestive heart failure. A couple interesting things. Number one, in the fetus, oxytocin is concentrated in the heart, and when it's concentrated in the heart is when the heart is going through the greatest growth in the fetus. So it probably has some effects on neonatal genes and flipping them on. But we also see oxytocin concentrations in the failing heart in people with congestive heart failure, which tells me that the body is trying to save itself, and it's concentrating oxytocin in the heart the way it did when the baby was being formed and the heart was being formed. So under that idea, I have two people that I've worked with the past 2 years that had very, very low ejection fractions. They told them that they weren't going to get any better, and they tolerated 60 IUs of oxytocin 2 to 3 times a day. And one of them is a very well-known personal trainer whose name I won't say, but he just messaged me the other day and said the doctor said that they can't believe it, that his heart is functioning normally. And I really think that oxytocin played a role. I can't say that. I mean, there's no research, but when you look at the studies about oxytocin's participation in building the fetal heart and then its presence in the failing heart, you got to say, maybe there's something here. Uh-oh, the dogs. That's okay. Look, here's what we're
I'm here. No, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
No,
I just had to pick up a dog and put it on a chair.
Okay, here we're gonna wrap up the show anyway. I just got to put this up there. Chrissy Fox, you're gonna have to go back and listen to all these things we're covered in the show. As soon as the show is over, you can actually start it from the beginning and watch it again. And of course, there's always the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Stitcher, and all the other places, Spotify. So real quick, I'm going to put these up because here's the most important message I can give you. Don't go this alone. There are 3 professionals here that this is their wheelhouse. This is all they do. It's not worth it to try a peptide and think it's working and not know if it's working or even if it's appropriate for you. There's never the discussion of whether or not these peptides are actually appropriate for you in your personal situation. So here we go. If you're out in the Pacific Northwest, Dr. Yurth's BoulderLongevity.com. Dr. Turner is more so the Southeast, right? You're in Georgia, right?
Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
Atlanta. There you go. Hotlanta at VineMedical.com. And Dr. Schwartz, where are you located?
New York City.
Oh, wonderful. I love New York. I was born there.
I could tell by your accent.
Could you? Oh, my accent used to be worse, but I used to be a cliche.
New York, all right. You still got it.
Yeah. ESHealth.com. So there you go. You got 3 offices in 3 different areas of the country. There is no excuse. Reach out to them. Ask for a consultation. Thanks to COVID, lots of people are able to do consultations via Zoom. Makes it even easier for you. Get help. Don't do this on your own. Please. Don't be a schmuck like me. No, I'm kidding. Anyway. All right. Look, thank you so much for making this happen. I know it was hard to coordinate everybody's schedule.
You.
So
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Betsy and Erika.
See you guys. Bye, guys.
All right, so that's it for today, folks. Hope you got something out of this. Share this show. Help lots of others. And we'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. I don't know what we have on for tomorrow, but I'm sure it's something wonderful because the lovely and talented Elisa Profumo does not book bad shows. All right. See you later.